I've been on Cato's show, and he's been on mine at least 2 dozen times. Yeah, we've been friends for a while. He used to be partners with Paul Godfrey, who's also a friend of mine. And yeah, and we met a long time, years ago. We started broadcasting together, and it's just, we've stayed friends ever since. He's a really nice guy. Yeah, I've always said I wanted to meet up too, but I'm not going to go to Florida for no reason. So, and I don't really travel much. Like, I go speak at conferences sometimes, but I don't, like, it's rare. Yeah. New Jersey. Okay, I'm going to run the intro, and then about 15 seconds I'll start the show. Okay. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Halsey Live. I am your host, Halsey English. Tonight, we have the one, the only, turd-flinging monkey, MGTOW influencer extraordinaire, and we have a new guest to the show, Aaron Clarey, author of A World Without Men, and quite a few other books, from what I understand, right?
Yeah, up to 10.
Very nice. I heard you have a new one coming out soon?
Just the outlines of it. I got more book ideas than I got the life expectancy to write them. But the next one is going to be about post-consumer, post-material standards of living in the economy.
Well,
so it's called Zero. Yeah.
What is your background that gets you into this stuff?
I was an economist at one time.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, back in the day, I did sovereign risk analysis for what was then Norwest and turned into Wells Fargo. And then went into banking for just shy of 2 decades. And so that was kind of my background. But then I was blogging back in 2004 when that came out. And that coincided with my, quote, real career and profession. And then as the powers that be, the two worlds kind of mixed, and the dating market and the sexual market and economics are one and the same. It's shocking how similar they are. So that's kind of the role that I've kind of filled out in the red pill community the past 2 decades.
My background's in economics. TFM's background is in economics. So I hear every word you're saying.
Yeah, that's why I listened to you guys. That's why I was like, oh man, these guys are so cool. They're just like me. Oh my God.
I also fuck dolls.
Well, we're not completely.
Well, not 100%, but yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like 3 amigos.
So tell me about this book, because here, you know what? I'm going to read the description for the audience first that you have on Amazon. A World Without Men is an analysis of what an all-female economy would look like. For 60 years, women have insisted they're strong and independent, they can do anything men can do, and in what is likely their boldest claim, they don't need men. But is it true? For 4 generations, men have been subjected to some pretty damning accusations. They're the oppressors of women, their misogyny is the sole cause of the much-hated wage gap, they are guilty of the original sins of privilege and institutional sexism, and this says nothing about the rank mockery and oftentimes outright hatred men receive in the media, government, and our schools. But perhaps the most damning accusation of them all is that men are no longer needed, that they are now somehow obsolete, that men have no value to society and therefore their entire existence is ultimately pointless and irrelevant as they serve no purpose. But as the sex war approaches its 60th anniversary and the intersexual screaming reaches a fevered pitch, did anyone take the time to see if women's original claim was at all in any way true? That women were not dependent on men, that women truly and factually did not need them. This book does precisely that. Using data from the U.S. Department of Labor, among many other resources, A World Without Men recreates what an all-female economy and society would look like, and sees if women could survive without men. With 97% of plumbers, 98% of electricians, and 96% of mechanics gone, would the world of women, full of HR managers, elementary school teachers, and essential oil saleswomen, be able to live without men? Would the vast and intricate infrastructures society relies on today, like our highway system, satellite, sewer system, and electric grid, continue operating flawlessly as they did before? And what of innovation? Would women finally, liberated from the shackles of men, be able to go and invent cold fusion, a cure for cancer, or colonize Mars? After 60 years of hearing how women are truly equals, yet are perennial victims, A World Without Men is a put up or shut up analysis that is long overdue about the efficacy of feminism and how serious women are about achieving equality. The real analysis, however, is not so much who's producing what, or what our society would look like with only 3% of the farmers it has today. It's the tremendous economic and social consequences that would result if you were to remove the entire male sex from society. Not so much in a hypothetical situation, akin to a science fiction fantasy where the planet of Asmonia is an all-female society, but in a very real scenario where you actually told generations of men they're not needed, passed laws to discriminate against them, demoralize them through media and government, even going so far as to tell them they're hated. Because whether you realize it or not, society is getting what it asked for. Feminists are getting their dream come true. We are increasingly living in a world without men, and it's a fascinating world indeed. So how did you come up with this concept?
Back in the, it was probably 7, 8 years ago, the Department of Labor had that data. They still do. I think the link is still there. I downloaded it just in case. And it showed what percent of men and women are in quite a wide and detailed array of industries and professions. And it's one of those things where you kind of intuitively already knew. I mean, you can look around. There's not a lot of female oil rig workers, and there's very few male kindergarten teachers. And so you knew it, but it's putting the numbers to it. And I don't know, just one day I got the idea. Probably was listening to some feminist or some gal say, we don't need no man for the 48th time. And I said, you know what? This isn't going to be terribly complex math to do. So I said, let's go ahead and recreate what an all-female economy would look like. And thankfully, the Department of Labor had that data. So all I did was remove men and the respective professions and corresponding GDP from that, and then recreated what an all-female economy would look like.
Now, would that... I would assume that the argument against would say, well, women would step up to those roles if challenged to do so. The reason that they don't is that they're predominated by men.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah,
has that been addressed? Like, have you gotten that criticism?
No, I haven't gotten that criticism, but I address it in the book. I say, if we were to just fully remove women, say, from farming, well, they're going to starve. Well, inevitably, they will pick up a combine or a plow and start working in farming. Same thing with electricity and all that. So I don't say women would not migrate to these industries. It's more of a criticism of women today. It's like, okay, what exactly do you bring to the economy? So yes, you are right, and I do say, this is not likely to be a scenario such as that. But I guess you'd be considered the propensity or the elasticity for certain types of labor. I don't think, to be perfectly honest, I don't think women could replace men 1-for-1 in those fields. I think you're at best going to get a third. Like, they just aren't going to be able to handle working on an oil rig in the Gulf of Mexico. I know precious few women who are mechanics. And if we are to talk about it in the real world, like, let's say men die or whatever, for whatever reason they're gone. I don't think most of the gals alive today with their liberal arts degrees there'd have to be this lengthy transition period where they just wouldn't be able to skill up, let alone muscle through it. To go and actually start getting next year's crops in, refine the gas. I really do. What percent of women even know the basics of how an engine work to get a truck to work, let alone a combine? How many girls are out there that know how to do routers and computers, let alone the electric? I don't know 95% of these things. And so, yes, I do address that caveat. Yes, there would be a migration from the labor, but it just, one, I think, max, you're going to get 3 out of every 10, like a 30% efficacy rate. And I don't think they'd be able to switch or do it in time. Certainly not to maintain the standards of living that we have now.
No, for sure. I mean, I think that's obvious, but again, I don't have the data to say that they would fall on their faces, but I think that with the amount of flat tires I've changed or jars I've opened, I would probably say that there's some level of learning curve that would lead to some pretty big problems. That's for sure.
Right. Well, I mean, and ultimately at the end, the spiders would kill them all because they can't kill a spider. Without men, the spiders would just come to rule, or there'd be the epic of spiders. But yeah, it would. Let's put it this way. I mean, we're talking theoretical, and nobody's going to know because it's speculating about a scenario that just won't take place. It would be bad.
Yeah.
It would be very, very bad compared to what we have now.
Before the show, we were talking about the intersection of economics and, red pill politics, let's say. Can you explain how you see the correlate? I mean, I know I see it. I know TFM talks about it as well, but I'm curious how you make the connection.
The best way I could put it, and hopefully I go down in history for this, is that female youth and beauty is the fuel that men, which are the economic engines, run upon. Without sex, without youth and beauty, not just women, but youth and beauty, meaning procreation, and we enjoy having sex. Without that, men shut down, and you lose most of your economy, and very likely most of your civilization. And a lot of the stuff that we see today with labor force participation rates going down, men dropping out of college, though attending trade school more, not joining the military. In other words, men's general retreat and ultimately going gulp, it's because you took away beautiful, attractive young women and any families that they would have had with them. And there is a direct consequence to that for the economy. And so that's what we're witnessing. I say it's because what really do men have to live for, aside from themselves? And I even talk about in the book, I use that meme that people have seen where, is it really okay for men to live like this? It's just got a floor mattress and a TV with a PlayStation. It's like, yeah. And that's how little men need. And think about, your traditional married nuclear man family and how much work he provided to provide, a house and a car or 2 cars and kids and food and clothing and all that. It's a fraction of the production that men are capable of.
I saw an interview once with he was a car salesman, and he said that if it weren't for women, there wouldn't even be a luxury car market, because no man would care about spending that much money on a car unless Correct. They did it to attract women. Like without that, there would be the idea of owning a Lexus would be completely stupid.
Right. It's only. I mean, I could see sports cars because guys like muscly fun cars. I could see that still being there. But yeah, your Range Rovers or your high-end SUVs. No, that's all female driven, and the commensurate production and GDP that comes with it. Absolutely.
Huh. TFM. Any comment?
No, well, I look at the red pill in economics because what is economics? It's the allocation of scarce resources, that are finite. Mm-hmm. So when you think about it, like most people just talk about money, but it's effectively economics is the study of choices, and your time, your freedom. These are all like, there's supply and demand, and you have to allocate your scarce resources to maximize, your well-being. And so as the price of pussy goes up and the quality of pussy goes down, more and more men just aren't willing to pay that price. And so that's why men go their own way or go galt or whatever you want to call it. And it's fundamentally an economics question. It's just not about money. It's about the other things in life that aren't, pieces of paper with dead presidents on them.
So
the unit of currency is your time. Sure. I mean, at the end of the day. Yeah. And so it's, as the pursuit of women has become more costly, and you factor in inflation and all that, to the point that it undermines your ability just to live and provide for yourself. I mean, that's kind of where a lot of young men are today, especially with cost of rent, education, transportation now with cars getting ridiculously expensive. I mean, a guy's got to eat. You gotta solve your basic Maslow's hierarchy of needs before you can start chasing tail. But then, and I think where the red pill also Venn diagrams over what the economics is the cost benefit analysis, where, yeah, I remember the olden days. Okay, fine, you'd get shot down the majority of the time, but 1 in 5 girls you'd asked out, you would go on a date with. Now it's a fraction of that, especially if you're going to consider online dating as a 1-to-1 translation, which it isn't, but it's much worse. But yeah, men are simply doing a cost benefit analysis. They're doing microeconomic decisions, saying, okay, I got a Friday night here. Am I going to go work an extra shift or go to night school and get an advanced degree? Or am I going to just go and play my video games and pursue a life of leisure? And you're seeing increasingly a higher percentage of men choose the latter.
It's someone in the chat just wrote, this would be the greatest accounting course ever. But it's funny because I've always thought about it like this, but I've never like put words to it. I graduated high school when I was 15, and I started going to college, and I was in this place where being smart was something women were attracted to. So I was like a kid in a candy shop. But the problem was I was 15 years old. Do you think I had any money? Like, so after a year or two of like, listen, I succeeded as much as I needed to. I figured out like a hack. So I went to culinary school. And I figured, like, you know what? If I learned to cook, it wasn't like a full-time thing. I went at night. And I figured if I learned to cook, then I never had to ask anyone out. I would just tell girls, like, hey, why don't I come over and cook for you? And then it only cost me, like, a fraction of what it would cost to go out. And I didn't have to worry about getting carded for alcohol. So, I've always looked at it as like an economic decision. Maybe more out of necessity than out of want. But at the same time, it's really funny that you put it that we make the connection to economics, but it really, really is an economic decision. And at this point, every economic decision requires like a lot of decision making, because the slightest alteration to your life can really have a positive or negative effect in a dramatic swing if it's not done right.
Well, I'll even provide some numbers to go along with just what the cost of the pursuit of women costs men. The book previous to the World Without Men book was called The Book of Numbers, Analyzing the ROI on the Pursuit of Women. And doing enough research and compiling data, and how much money does the average date and all that. The average guy will spend about $265,000. It's more like $300,000 adjusted for inflation. Let's call it $300,000 in cash expenditures on pursuing women, whether it's dating, getting cars they don't want necessarily, more education than they need. That's $300,000 of expenses in your life up front early on when you're not making that much money, and then probably amortized up until the point of either divorce or till death do you part, of which I made an assumption, but the math is irrelevant. But that's a sizable expenditure, especially when you're a young man. Is $300,000 from basically the age of 13 when you hit puberty to about 35, 40, depending on when your courtship ends or you get divorced and other such assumptions. So this is not like, oh, do I buy a pair of Nike high tops? This is without fail the most expensive and costly economic decision men have to make, more than your education. And unless you were buying some ridiculous size McMansion, more than a house. But it's very relevant because of the sheer cash cost. And don't even get me started about opportunity costs, what men could achieve if they weren't chasing tail all the time when they were younger.
But again, if just to push back a little bit, if they weren't chasing tail all the time, then the chances of them having a wife and children seriously go down too. And a lot of people would say that family is the goal of life.
Right. No, you're right. I mean, the question, okay, if not girls, what then? And that's a question facing a lot of young guys today as well. I guess it's leisure. Another book I wrote called The Menu, Life Without the Opposite Sex, addresses that because whether men like it or not, a lot of this is going to be out of everyone's hands. The rise of the she economy that came out from Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley. People that, if you don't believe me, then believe them. They're forecasting, 45% of women or half of women weren't going to be married by 2030. of marrying age. So we could say, well, if you weren't pursuing women, what is the point of life? That you're right. There's not really another game in town. I'd say survival is the number one game, getting financially stable so that you could actually ask a girl out and be stable and have a family. That's required up front. But you're starting to look at the demand for forming relationships on the side of women. And I know it's all, oh, we're MGTOW, we're leaving women, and we're not going to give you our commitment. Women, if you look at polling and their actions, are equally disinterested, I'd say, in marriage and forming families as well. And so a lot of guys aren't going to really have the choice, I'm afraid, because there's not going to be a reciprocal or adequate interest in women to marry men one for one. So these economic decisions and analyses, whether done on an intricate spreadsheet or in a man's mind, just kind of ballpark it, they're going to have to be conducted, and men are going to have to think about these things.
I mean,
it's not in men's.
Go ahead.
Like, well, so the problem is, bottom 80% of men are just invisible to women, and even among the top 20%, only like 3/4 of them, like they're considered average, and only like the top 5% are considered desirable. So all the women are chasing the top 5% men. They're the only men that they consider marriageable, and of course, none of them want to settle down because they're like 5s and 4s. You know, maybe if she was like a 10, maybe they'd settle down, but they're not going to settle for a 5. They'll fuck you though. You know, they'll use you as a cum dump, but they're not going to marry you. But these women just chase them until they're old and gray, and then they wander around like, why can't I find Mr. Right, while ignoring like 90% of men. And that's just hypergamy. Like, putting women in charge of mate selection is basically special suicide. There's a reason why nature made men bigger and stronger and made them the pursuers and the acquirers of women. But we've flipped everything in the name of equality, and now everything's going to shit. Yeah, but the good news is when it finally goes to shit, patriarchy will fill the void and nature will be restored. It'll be fine in the long run, but all of this is going down because all of this is built on equality and bullshit.
But how? I mean, purple-haired lesbians aside, I mean, I hear constantly from women that they want to have babies and they want to be married. I mean, is it just one of those cases of they say they want a nice guy, but the reality just proves the opposite?
Right. Well, their standards are way too high. So yeah, they're waiting for like Christian Grey from 50 Shades of Grey, who's like the 20-something billionaire who never has to go to work and just flies her around on his helicopter and eats her pussy. That's who she's waiting for to sweep her off her feet and marry her. That's who she's holding out for, because all the rom-com movies she watched, because the whole thing about like these rom-com movies is you have a woman that there's nothing special about her. She's not like super hot. She's just like an average woman, and she just shows up and men fight over her, and it's like, and she's the center of attention. She's basically she's an extra in her own movie. She's not even the main character. She's just kind of around as men fight over her, and she doesn't have to really do anything. And then eventually the winner selects her, and then they run off into the sunset. That's what women want. They just want to be fought over. And that's fine.
I saw a Twitter thread recently where the guy was saying, like, you know, my wife had me watch a rom-com with her tonight, and I realized that I've seen this movie a million times because all rom-coms are basically the same. And do you realize that in almost every one, the nerdy whatever guy is chasing the woman who's with someone else, and inevitably every single time she cheats on the other guy. She doesn't tell the other guy to fuck off and then run off with the nerd. The nerd sweeps her away and has sex with her while she's still with someone else. And this is considered like noble. That
well, what's the most romantic movie of all time is Titanic, where this guy cheats on her husband with a homeless guy and then lets him drown by the end of the movie. And that's like the peak. That's peak romance. Fucking a homeless guy and killing him.
Halsey, to get to your question, like, well, wait, why? I see girls all the time talking about men and having children and all that. And you're right, but keep in mind, it's not, you don't just get one thing in life. If you look at polling data on terms of women's priorities, depending on the age cohort, men getting married are ranked around 5th. If you're younger, they're ranked even lower. It's 7th, because you're coming behind things like travel, have fun, If you get into your upper 20s, early 30s, then men are fourth, but they are always behind career, education, and children. So I think what's happened in the past, say 50, 60 years is, of course, women still want to get married, of course, but not as much as they used to. It's no longer the number one thing. I would also add, keep in mind that being a wife and a mother today is drastically different than what it was 50, 60 years ago. 50, 60 years ago, you had to be a good wife. You had to be a good mom. You had to raise the kids, take care of the husband, and all that other stuff. It really is more of a status, I'd say, right now. I've said before, every woman wants to get married and have kids. Very few want to be a wife and a mother. And that shows. You look at how many of them drop their kids off at daycare, the divorce rates, and all that. So it's still, I'm trying to think of what it would be the equivalent. Like, when you're a young kid, maybe you want the sports car. Oh, wouldn't it be the best thing to have a Corvette? Sure, yeah, why not? But you get a little bit older. It doesn't mean that you don't want a Corvette. It's just that, would you like a Corvette? Like, yeah, I suppose I would, but you're just not that excited about it. So women, I think,
I
yes.
got an analogy.
Yeah.
It's like when a person says, "I really need to get in shape and work out." Like they know what they have to do, but they always they don't do it. So they're always like, someday they'll have that motivation. And maybe if they get teased enough, or maybe maybe something happens, they have short-term motivation, they hit the gym for a bit, but then they quit, they go back to their old lifestyle. And that's basically women. Like they hold out hope, like if they find the right guy, but they're not doing anything to try to attract that guy. They're just kind of floating from situationship to situationship, letting guys on Tinder use them for sex because they're hot. And then they just wake up one day in their 40s and nobody's returning their calls, and it's the patriarchy.
Right. And I'd also say, what really think about, let's use a 40-year-old woman who's complaining about not having a date. No, I'd like to find a guy. Well, that's only because you've knocked out so many other things in your life, which are obviously of a primary importance, that outrank men beforehand. So you did get your career, you did get your master's degree, maybe you finally got financial stability, and after a certain point, you're hoping that you generally progress through life, and now you get to the third, fourth, or fifth things that were really important to you. So girls are like, okay, now I'm finally ready for a guy. Okay, not giving no consideration to what men want. And that, it's kind of a little late at that point in time. So
they want to go to the husband store.
What's that?
They want to go to the husband store and
they
buy
want to go to the husband
now
store.
They're ready. There's no husband store. And now they're in their 30s or 40s. And the men they want are all dating women in their 20s. And the funny thing is, they remember when they were in their 20s, they were often going around with guys in their 30s and 40s with money. Sure. Ignoring the guys their own age. And then when they're in their 30s and 40s, they expect the guys in their 30s and 40s to be there, but they're all dating women in their 20s. And then they're like, oh, guys only want one thing. And it's like, what else do you bring? Shut up. And then they run off and buy a bunch of cats.
But my point was just to explain to Halsey that women aren't being contradictory or hypocritical. It's just that, they do want men, but they want things typically, especially when they're younger, more.
I mean, I obviously I have a bit of a bias because my community is a lot different than most. So, but in my community, they're even they call it a crisis. It's basically like a marriage crisis if you translate it from Yiddish. And the reason being is that typically everyone gets married at 18, right? Like that's when the matchmaking starts, and like at 18, men and women get married. But now people are going to college. So the issue is that women and men are pushing off marriage for a couple years, but men will not marry women that are older than them. So from, let's say, 18 to 24, they're only willing to marry younger, but the girls who go to college are graduating at 22, 23 and not able to find men because anyone that's worth marrying is already married. And as they get older, every year that goes by gets increasingly harder. Where if they want to get married, they have to find
the solution is shockingly obvious. It's baffling how everyone. All you got to do, okay, if you're a woman, all you got to do is marry young, and then once you have your kids, once your youngest kid is in school and you have a little more time to yourself because all the kids are basically taking care of themselves, then you can go to college. And how old? If you have 5 kids, so you start having kids at 18, you have 5 kids, you're 23, 24. You have a kid a year for 5 years, and okay, so you're 24, and then you go to college. Like, who cares? That's not the end of the world. And now you've had all your kids. You have your family. You have your kids. You just put off going to college until you've locked in those other things. That, like, there's a time window. If you miss your window, it's not going to happen. And also, like, putting aside the whole thing we were talking about a few minutes ago, women's sexual marketplace value diminishes after 25. She's not going to be able to attract a better man at 26 than she could at 25. So it behooves them, we talk about economics. You got to buy low, sell high. You need to marry, settle down while you're peak freshness. You don't want to wait till you're all moldy to try to, like, get somebody to pay full price. So women, they just have it backwards. And the problem is, it's because we have a one-size-fits-all society where we insist everybody do the same thing. Men need to go to college immediately because they need to start earning money so they can support a family. Women need to not go to college until they've already had their kids. But if we structure society that way, that would be sexist because, we're treating women and men differently. But by treating women like men, we basically set them up for failure because they spend their prime fertile years, their peak sexual marketplace value years, going to college. And then they get out of college and they can't find anyone because they're too old, or they've missed their window, or they just get used for sex, waiting for Mr. Right to propose, who never does. And then now they're in their 40s and they're wondering what happened. And all you had to do was just work backwards, and you could have had it all. You could have had your college degree, could have been a girl boss, and you could have had kids.
You're 100% right, but something a bit more dark or black pill, but I wouldn't say black pill, I just say empirical that I've seen, and I'm coming more and more along to this line of reasoning, is you're making the assumption that women want to get married and they've just been hoodwinked by society. And certainly you could say that some women have, but the data I'm seeing, and I want to thank Thinking Ape for kind of giving me this epiphany. I just don't think women like men that much. I don't think they're deep down inside, they want to get married and have kids and be a stay-at-home mom. Certainly some do, but I think women are actually acting on their true motives and desires. I think most women don't want to get married. I think most women do want to have kids. I think that is true. But more than anything else, I think they want to have their career, their education, the freedom to travel, to sleep around a bit and have fun and essentially avoid the responsibilities of being married and having children. Then they get older and the good times end, and like, okay, maybe tiring, partying gets tiring. The novelty is gone. Okay, I guess I get married. But if you look at some of the happiness studies, you look at women's interest in dating as they get older. I don't see it.
You're right. No, what it is it's like men wanting a job. Nobody really wants a job. Nobody, like, I can't wait to work for 40 hours a week. They just understand that if they want to not be homeless, they need to get a job. But it's like, if they could win the lottery or have the government give them free money so they didn't have to work, most people would take that deal. Mm-hmm. So, but we don't have that option. So we look for jobs. We understand that if we want to have a certain lifestyle, a job is the price. And so the problem is women have these options showered upon them where they're told you can have it all. You don't need a man for financial security. You could have your own career. You could be a single mom. Like, single moms look, you're like a superhero. Single moms can do it all. And they realize that's a lie. And just like a man realizes he has to go find a job if he wants to, like, not be homeless, a woman realizes she actually needs another adult to help her raise the kid she wants and to provide her the financial security she wants. Like, welfare is great and all, but it's never going to, like, give you a good it'll, like, keep you from starving to death, but it's not going to give you a good standard of living. Plus, you end up living in, like, the deep in the ghetto with, like, all the criminals, and you don't want to raise kids in that environment. So they realize in time that they do need to settle down and have a husband, but at that point they've probably already screwed their life up. But women, the problem is women are really easy to manipulate because they don't really think second, third order. They just kind of, whatever I want the shortest path from here to there because I want to feel good. And so they're really easy to, like, just dangle a shiny object in front of them and you got them. So really easy to manipulate women into buying the lie that they don't need family, they don't need men, they can just girl boss it up and get their diversity job and be a single mom and have it all. And then they only realize once they've done that, it was a lie, and now it's too late. Or if they're attractive, they're hoping they have these really high standards. They're hoping like that top 5% guy, they can they propose to them. Their vagina's magic, and if they just have sex with enough men, eventually they're going to cast their spell on one of them who's going to propose to them because they'll be addicted to their pussy magic or whatever they think. And it doesn't work out. And they don't know why, because they did everything they were told, and they're not happy. And then the worst part is they don't take any responsibility. So then they try to blame society, and they blame the patriarchy, and they blame men for being horny and not caring about their feelings. And it's an endless cycle, because women basically train other women to do the same thing that they did to validate their own mistakes. Women, it's like misery loves company. Women love to like put out bullshit about how happy they are when they're not, and then only when other people are miserable like them, like, oh yeah, I did that because I wanted you to be miserable too. Kind of, it's really insidious. What are you going to do?
Well, but the and I'm not saying that doesn't happen, or even doesn't happen to the majority of women, but I think the flaw in our analysis here is whether women have regret, whereas if we just look in terms of demand for men, it's indisputable and irrefutable that once white collar work became a thing through technological advancement and the welfare state, women definitely have a choice into whether or not they want a man in their life. Back in the day, yeah, you kind of needed a man to survive. And whether or not women are hoodwinked or they believe feminism and deep down inside they cry themselves to sleep, I am so much a misanthrope and a pessimist. I don't care anymore. I don't care. All I'm looking at is, okay, now you literally do not need men. And the traditional transaction of sex and youth and beauty and children for protection and provisioning and being a provider, that's gone. And a lot of women are no longer in the market for men, or certainly their demand for men has gone down, as there's no longer an economic survival component to it. Right. We could make and I do believe that the thing that would make a woman happiest would be a man. I think women are happiest when they have children, they stay at home and they raise the kids. But I'm not. I've heard enough back talk and sassy shit in my generation where I'm like, nope, fine, do your thing. I don't care if you're happy or not. Mine is more of a critical takeaway and look like demand for men and marriage has definitely gone down. And consequently, you could say, okay, let me ask you guys this. If women really want to get married, they want to find that guy, the guy behind the corner, the Disney fairy tale prince and all that, what would they be doing right now?
I don't know if I can answer that. Because I don't know what.
Well, they would try. Presumably, yeah. They would try to become. They try to become the woman the man they want to attract wants.
Right. They would become the princess.
They become the princess. They'd be beautiful, fair, attractive. They wouldn't have other men's kids. And I'm saying, just look at their behavior. It's obviously they don't give a shit what men want. Well, they really don't.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the whole thing about like, we don't have the option to say, well, I don't feel like working. I choose the path where I don't have to work. I mean, you could go on disability or welfare,
or
but
live with your parents or something like that.
Yeah, live with your parents. Fake. Become a NEET or something. Most guys understand that that's a very limiting life, and they wouldn't be happy doing that. So, even though they, all things being equal, we would prefer to not have a job. We prefer to just sit at home all day and play video games or do something else that we find pleasurable that isn't going to work for 40 hours. But we know that that's a sacrifice we have to pay. But we don't enjoy going to work. Very few people really like get up and they're just like so happy to go to work every morning. It's just like that's the price you pay for this lifestyle that you want. And women basically treat men the way men treat their jobs. This is like the price I have to pay to get this lifestyle I want. But because of feminism and welfare and diversity and all this other stuff, they can have that lifestyle without a man. They can just be a single mom, have a career, that sort of thing. And it seems like a good deal. Just like if I offered you welfare and Section 8 housing and Medicaid, it seems like a great deal. What? I get free healthcare and food and housing, and I don't have to work? Like, where do I sign up? But then, of course, like once you're in Section 8 housing, once you're hearing gunshots every day, once you're getting, all
just
like when you're
just the existential of what do you do every day with your life? I mean, that's gotta suck too.
But the point is like, it sounds good on paper until you've lived it for a while, and then you realize the only way to get out of this pit is you're going to have to basically start climbing, and it's going to be really, you've digged such a hole for yourself, it's going to be really hard to get out. And so women usually later in life, they realize, I kind of screwed up, and I wish I made better choices when I was younger. But at the time, just like if I offered you free money, you'd be a fool to say no. If I'm like, hey, do you want to like quit your job and get free healthcare and food and a free house? You're not going to be like, no, I like going to work. So women are basically making the rational choice to take the free stuff, to take all the benefits that society gives them, where they don't need a man anymore. But then, just like somebody who's living in Section 8 housing with nothing to do with their life, they realize their life is very bad and they wish they made better choices. But it's very hard to convince somebody. It's like trying to convince it. You know how young people always think communism sounds great? Like, what free stuff? Or, like trying to convince them not to go down that path is almost impossible, because until they've experienced it, it sounds so great. Free stuff, equality. Where do I sign up?
I'd agree with it. And no doubt in a population of 340 million Americans, there are women who do regret it. But I would think we'd see behavior and data start to come in with the 35 plus women, where they'd start to get in shape, where they'd go out and date more. I mean, I was at my early 30s before I ended up finding the gal I'm with now. I don't see, certainly in polling data, I don't see women saying, "Oh my God, I screwed." Like when you're a young idiotic 20-something.
I could explain that. Okay, it's because of online dating. So it used to be women would have to go out.
For this one. I got to hear this one.
women used to, like, when you wanted to find a guy, you'd have to get all gussied up, and you'd have to head down to the watering hole and go square dancing, and that's how you wrestle yourself up a man. Now women just open up a dating app, and all women will get like hundreds of matches in one day. And so then it's almost like you're hiring for a job, and you're getting all these resumes. And so women get so many hits that they go through and they see all the guys that are matching with them, and they'll just like, okay, not attractive, swipe right, like left, right, left, right. And a lot of the guys they're matching with are just going to use them for sex. So they're not really meeting somebody to form a relationship with them. But online dating is so easy and it's so ubiquitous that's what these older women do. They just go on social media and just match with people, and that's how they meet guys. They don't go places to meet people. They don't go on dates. They just match with people. And usually, because you have, just imagine you're hiring for your business. If you had 10 resumes and that was it, that's how many people applied, because you have like a small business in a small town. You would call them all, interview them all, try to find somebody. But when you're getting hundreds of matches a day from guys from all over the place, you basically filter things out. So you filter it by attractiveness, height, whatever, to try to get that down to a manageable level. And so you're only talking to the most attractive guys who are like 6 foot tall and whatever criteria you give to make that numbers manageable. And so women become extremely shallow, and then they're only matching with the guys who are going to just use them for sex. And that's the only guys they connect with. They don't even give the guys who are like looking for marriage, looking for family, they don't even bother going out with them, because they don't date anymore. They don't go out to meet people. They just go on social media or dating apps.
So what you're saying is you're not, I mean, from my view, they're still off the market then for the majority of men. There's still no gas in the tank.
I have a solution.
Okay, because that's what I was going to say. Is like, the
debate
we're having now is whether or not women are regretting or ruining. You say they are. I'm still to be determined. But we both agree that they're effectively off the market, because if you're on online dating and you're only going after what is increasingly, you're not too far off. It is like the top 5% now.
It is.
It's ridiculous.
The data backs me up on this. The point is, okay, so here's my solution. First of all, we need to take women's rights away, but we also need to take the choosing ability away from women. The problem with these online dating apps is women just get too many matches. This whole like swipe right kind of shit, it gives women too much control, but they can't handle that kind of accountability. So they just, they make very surface level judgments just to kind of get through the numbers, or they'll just, they'll put in filters to filter out guys, and they're filtering out a lot of guys they'd normally maybe have a meaningful connection with, who just aren't going to hit their radar because they're not 6 foot tall or they're not a 10. And so what we need to have, like, if we're not going to go back to the patriarchy, we need to have like an AI, essentially, like you take a bunch of personality tests, or you have like a dating concierge that you chat with, and it gets to know you as a person, and it finds people who it thinks, based on its interactions with other people of the opposite sex, that they think you might be a good match for. And instead of you getting hundreds of matches from Indians who think you're hot and they want to see your bob and vagine, you get like you can select like how many people you want. You want the top 10, you want the top 50, and the AI will recommend people based on your personality, what you're interested in, the things you shared with the AI. It'll match you with someone that it thinks is a good fit for you. And then you can talk to them. And, if they're hideously ugly, you can basically decline. But I think if that happened, it's almost like a matchmaking service. And then women would be more open to talking to guys who normally would be off their radar. And it's not necessarily women's fault. When you're getting hundreds of matches a day, you have to filter somehow. So either you put up filters and you filter by height or something, or you just only swipe right on the most attractive people, because you don't have time to chat with 300 people a day. So the thirst is very real for men, because there are guys who will literally swipe right on all. They treat these women on these dating sites like they're trying to sell something. They think it's a numbers game. If they swipe right on every woman on this site, one of them's gonna swipe right on them, and then they'll get some pussy. So you have these women just getting swiped, like getting hundreds of matches, and they could be hideously ugly, and they will just get like hundreds of matches a day from everyone, mostly Indians, but everyone.
See, but here, a recent philosophy I've been trying to implement more in the past 6 months of my life is, that sounds like a them problem. What I'm getting tired of is listen to what we're recommending. Women are just these creatures who are frivolous, and they're just walking in the walls, and they don't know left from right. And we got to come up with an AI concierge filtering. Like, I was like, no, that sounds like way too much work. And the paradox that we face is, with men and our sex drive, we are so horny and we so want to get the girls and get laid that we never let women do this shit on their own. We'll tailor it this way. We'll do it that way. We'll do it that. Oh wait, you don't like that? We'll do that.
They can't.
Okay, let's say they can't. Let's say they can't. I'm done with this. Come on, little girl. Now it's time to go out with the guy without the tattoos. Like,
all right. Well, then we need to start cracking some progress on those artificial wombs and test tube babies. Then, if we want to keep the species from going extinct,
dads is what we need. But
unfortunately, dads don't have ownership of their families or children. They 100% belong to the woman, and it's just not worth it for a man to take that risk because of the gynocentric slant for society. And women, they've been given all this power in the name of equality, and they have no means of using it responsibly. But we don't want to admit that men and women are different, and women can't be responsible for themselves, because that would violate the sacred cow of equality. So
let's say women have no agency or responsibility. Fine. What obligations does that set upon men to go make their lives better, or correct them, or put them, quote unquote, on the right path?
All right. So here's the thing: like, if you're a farmer and you want to have some cows and some chickens and whatever, you're going to have to take care of the cows and the chickens. Like, you can't just buy a cow and just let it kind of do its own thing and then expect the buckets of milk to just fill themselves. You're going to have to take care of the cow, feed the cow, whatever. And you get the milk in exchange for your labor for the cow's well-being. Same thing with all livestock. That's just the deal. Like, being a farmer is work. but you benefit from it if you take care of your animals. Your animals will provide you with wool and milk and eggs and whatever. And so that's what women are. Women are basically a thing that men have to take care of to make babies happen.
Okay. Maybe my point. One, I disagree on several things, but
so do I. I'm just waiting too.
My point is not even. What if I don't want to raise the cow? You see my point. Where okay, let's remove the male sex drive. And this is, I think, what a lot of men are facing, especially as they're younger. And this is what I faced when I was younger. I needed to eat. I had to work. I had to go to school. There was no time for women. And I remember one gal in particular wanted to go out with me. She was a particular religion. I said, no. She said, why not? I said, because you won't sleep with me. She says, well, I'll do a lot of other things. And I didn't say this to her, but it's like, fuck you. Like, I am hungry. I am starving. I have shit going on. And you want me to what? Be your cuddle bitch? Like the amount of tailoring and kowtowing and laying the coats down and okay, we're going to get him this. Like after a while, maybe I'm just 50 and I'm old, but it is so exhausting and so tiring that I ask the philosophical question, why do we have to do all this? Well, like, okay, girls decide, like they're polling, all right? They prefer other things than men. I'm like, fine, go have at it. But I'm not going to sit here and argue. I mean, we've been doing this for almost 20, 25 years now, trying to argue with women that like, hey, maybe love and children and a husband and not being a fat Marxist pig, maybe that is the key to maybe you might want to try that. And all we get is called names and this and that. And I'm just like, yeah, you know what? What's going to teach them the most is just letting them the fuck alone, not worrying about it. And I'm not saying it's a go galt or, we're going to teach them a lesson, but it's just so exhausting. And I think a lot of guys, especially the younger ones who, frankly, their testosterone isn't as high, whatever their diet, maybe there's something in the water, I don't know. But you're starting to see this indifference and this just like, nah, I'm not doing that. We're all over 40, I think. We're starting to see these younger guys where they're very apathetic towards girls. They don't care. And so that's what I think is where we're at now is a lot of guys are yes, we could have conversations all day about what could we do, what kind of strategies, and those conversations should be had. And a lot of times they will work. But I'm asking the question, why do I have to deploy a 500-page strategy? It's like, no, man, I got shit to do. I got stuff going on.
Right. So again, I alluded to this earlier. The price of pussy keeps going up and the quality of pussy keeps going down. Mm-hmm. So to use our farming analogy, imagine if the price of a cow, like let's say you wanted to add a few more cows to your farm.
Is there a non-livestock example?
I know. I was just thinking the same thing.
No, look, you're going to have to roll with it.
All right.
But if the price of these animals quadrupled, for some reason there was like there was bird flu and a whole bunch of chickens died, and now the price of chicks, like let's say you want to start a chicken coop, well, the price of chickens have quadrupled, and maybe it's not worth it. Maybe it's not worth getting those chickens because the price of chickens is too high. That's basically what we're facing. Women's demands and standards keep going up, but they keep getting fatter and they do less and they're worth less, but they demand more. And the reason why is because they still get attention. These thirsty guys will still swipe right on them and worship them and send them money and just throw money and attention at them. So why they look at it as, why should I try hard when all these guys are willing to shower me with money and attention when I don't try hard? Mm-hmm. So
I'm not disagreeing with their logic. I mean, they're doing what they want.
No, they're like, I'm not saying women are these like automatons that are basically just whatever. They're acting rationally in the system that's been built for them. This system just doesn't lead to anybody's fulfillment because it's based on a complete rejection of reality, where we substituted biological reality for an ideology that makes us feel good. And we insist on following that to the bitter end, regardless of what it's doing to people in society. And unfortunately, in order to fix this problem, we have to acknowledge that men and women are not equal. They never are, and they never will be. And women, like, unfortunately, if you try to push, like, I think I'm not saying you've made this point, but I've heard this point made that in the modern day, men shouldn't have to take care of women. Women are fully capable of working and pulling their weight. They should be a partner, not some giant child that this man has to take care of for the rest of his life. And unfortunately, that's not how it works. Women do need to be taken care of, or babies don't happen. They've done, studies where they look at women who, they try to maintain the male standard when it comes to athletics or in the military, and they become infertile because they push their bodies too hard to try to keep up with the men. And it's just not possible for women to do. I'm not even talking peak men. I'm talking like the average man. If a woman tries to push herself to keep up with the average man, she will drive her body into infertility. If you want babies to happen, if you want the species to continue, men have to take care of women. And the problem is women, because of this ideology that showers all this privilege onto women, they don't feel they have to do anything because there's so many men chasing them, and it becomes self-reinforcing. So the whole system needs to be torn down. And just like men have to go find a job if they want to be taken care of, women, without the welfare state, without the family courts, without the government, without diversity quotas and DEI, they'll quickly realize they need to actually find someone to take care of them, or they're going to starve to death. And then patriarchy will magically fill the vacuum and everything will be fine. Nature will reassert itself. We're living in a very expensive, temporary system that's been propped up on false promises and feel-good ideology, and it's already failing. It's failing all around us. I don't know how many years it has left, or whatever. It's not going to be pretty, and I don't know if the West will recover. And there's going to be some dark times ahead, but I'm optimistic about the future. It's just feminism is an expensive luxury that when you have a very rich country, you can indulge in feminism. You can allow women to LARP as men. You can pretend that gender equality is a thing, and that's fine because you can afford it. You can basically throw money away. But when the money runs out, it all goes away because it has to. It's all predicated on a bunch of nonsense. It's like a trust fund baby that blow all their money on hookers and blow, and then grandpa's money ran out. And now you got to go get a job. That's what's going to happen to feminism.
Well, but I think you and I both, because we've said it before on our respective channels, where I don't think it's going to be. We both agree women are not going to say, "Hey, wait a second, all this, disability or welfare or whatever else, and the online dating." I think both you and I agree that women are not under their own volition going to have an epiphany and say, boy, you know what? I really do want a nuclear family. And this feminism thing was wrong. I don't think that's going to happen. Consequently, I think both you and I are going to agree that the only thing that would get back to where men are the engines of economic growth, more traditional thing, is there's going to have to be a complete collapse of the economy, or at least an elimination of the welfare state, where men and women, once again, or at least women needed men for economic survival. So that is so far in the future. I think you and I will be dead by the time that happens. So that then poses the question: what do men do in the meantime? We're not going to grab our pitchforks and torches and force women onto some kind of commune. And I conclude, that's in part why I wrote the book, men's most logical economic choice is to just not economically participate, to live for oneself, which does not requires a fraction of the money that it does to pursue, capture, have a family and have kids.
I would say you're onto something with that, just in what I've seen amongst my own observations, is that the men who stop caring, who don't simp out and do whatever, are the ones that the women chase. So it becomes a self-feeding cycle. If you want to have these things, you have to not care. By not caring, you'll be chased, which means you can probably succeed. But the hard part is not caring in the first place.
You're right, but you still have to meet a bare minimum when it comes to physical attractiveness. Like being aloof and being kind of too cool for school. Women do find that attractive because they're so used to men worshiping them that if you act like you don't really care, they find that intriguing. But also, if you have to be pleasant looking. Otherwise, they're just gonna they don't even, if you're in the bottom 80%, they don't even acknowledge your existence. You don't even exist to them. You're a ghost if you're not in the top 20%.
I don't know if
So
I don't
there's
know
a
how
bare
true
minimum
that
of protective.
completely is, because I had
It's
this
it's
friend growing
verified.
up. I had this friend growing up. He literally looked like Sloth from the Goonies. Like, I mean,
Hmm.
this is an ugly man. I have never seen him with an ugly girlfriend, and he married a 10 as well. The guy has charisma coming out like every pore of his body, and
I mean,
he just has an amazing personality, and he just seems to make
he's
it
got
work
that
for him.
baby Ruth.
Yeah,
He's got that sweet baby Ruth. But
yeah.
okay, so there's exceptions to every rule, but the exception proves the rule, and there's statistics that back this up. And also I don't know, this in your community, because the
No,
Orthodox Jewish
no. This is
community
someone I
isn't
grew up with.
necessarily
I didn't grow up in the
okay.
Orthodox community.
Yeah, I don't know. Look, I can't explain the exceptions. I can just tell you, like, the exceptions prove the rule. It is what it is. Like, some people, like, they meet somebody in high school and they hit it off and they get married and they stay together for decades, and that's it. That they're one and only. They're one and done. They just won the lottery right out of the gate. Some people get, like, cheated on and heartbroken for years and years and years and didn't end up alone, and they did everything they could. I've heard stories about a guy who he basically worked out, became like this Giga Chad 10 out of 10 guy to try to get a good man, not a good man, a good woman. And he found a good woman, religious, attractive, whatever. They get married and she just doesn't like sex. She's like, she
Womp
thinks
womp.
sex is icky. And
Oof.
yeah. And so he's just like, but I did everything. It's like an episode of The Twilight Zone. But I did everything. There was time now. There was all the time I needed.
I'll echo Halsey's observation, because the consulting company I run, it's coming up on its 11th year, and I've had some clients that are 10 years old now, and they're young teenage boys or 20 something, and now they're in their 30s, and I am seeing more and more young men who realize, yeah, I don't have time to be chasing girls. My dad got divorced, or I came from a broken family. They major in the right thing, or they go into the military, get the GI Bill, whatever. And there's it's not a it's not a majority, but it's there of young men who didn't put women at the center of their lives in their teens and 20s, who did put their career and work hard, and they are sitting very pretty. And yeah, they could get the girl. They're in jujitsu. They got hobbies. Their questions are usually, well, what do I do with my life now? I'm like, I don't know. I'll let you know when I get to that stage. I think that's good, and that is how you get girls, is by going out, living your own life, and becoming actually something. When you're a 23-year-old kid, you're like, hey, I got a dick, and I
Well,
got a college degree. How does that say? No, you actually are an accomplished man by 30, 32 with good finances. So it's easier to date then. But I still, one thing we haven't talked about is, I would say, women's PR issue they got, where right now you look at what's going on the internet, and I know the internet is not the real world, but men are informed by this. Men see it. Right now, these guys are looking at these gals. There is no indication of women being demure, nice, sweet, kind, or just wife material in general. So I
you're
think
also
until this,
ignoring the big elephant in the room. A lot of women these days are sex workers, which means you don't even have to date them. You could just rent them.
right, but which even furthers my point, that's less economic work. Like, if I can rent a gal instead of getting married and have kids and all that, that's still a fraction that I have to work now and produce, economically speaking. And so even we could talk about women's motivations. Let's say deep down inside, women desperately all wanted to get married, and they've just been going along to get along with the feminist directives so that they pass their college degrees and be popular with the girls. But they deep down inside really wanted to get married and have kids. Well, they're sure as hell doing a shit job advertising that. They need to go hire a PR expert and a marketing manager, because they're gonna have to. Right now, they're certainly continuing to deter men from even considering marriage,
Well, I can
let
explain.
alone
So
working up the money to afford a family.
I talked about this in a video I did like in 2015. So it's because of projection, and this ultimately comes back to this lie of equality, and guys do it too. Like, the reason why guys are nice guys, they try to be like her best friend and be all sweet and supportive and be her shoulder to cry on, is they're acting like the woman they want for themselves. Because this live equality, guys are like, well, who do I want? Who do I want to marry? What kind of woman do I want? And they think, well, I want a woman who's supportive and emotionally there for me. And so like, well, then since we're all the same, I need to be supportive and emotionally there. And I need to be a good supportive person. And that's how I'm going to get like a good supportive wife, and then we're going to have a family and be sweet and supportive to each other. And women find that disgusting and unattractive, and it's all predicated on this bullshit of equality. But that's why women, they think that if they're a girl boss and they make a lot of money, they're going to attract a billionaire who's like on their level. But the billionaires on their level would rather have sex with a 25-year-old who can't even like string a sentence together but has nice firm tits than a 35-year-old who's like starting her second business. They couldn't give less of a shit about how much she makes and what her 5-year plan is. They just want somebody with like nice firm tits and with a mouth that doesn't quit. So it's projection. That's the long and short of it. Guys project, and that's why they become nice guys. Girls project, and they try to be like alpha women, and it's just disgusting for both parties. And we need to have a conversation about like men and women are different. Stop it.
I think our age is biasing us. I'll go along with men. Okay, the premise we were told when we were young kids was men and women were equal, and then I remember being so stupid. Well, that means girls are going to ask out guys in equivalent amounts and just equality. The functional use of the goddamn word, and that never really came to fruition. But I could see our generation, predominantly Gen X, where, okay, I'm going to be remember the sensitive 90s push. You guys had that, be the sensitive 90s guy. That may have hoodwinked us, but I think we all got to pat ourselves on the back because we've done a pretty good job. The younger generation of men, I'd say younger millennials and younger, Zoomers in particular, they're not doing this. Well, I'll be a nice guy. I'm sure, yeah, if you're Harry Sison of the Democrat Party, okay, you're going to have your true believers. But I think these boys are a lot more street smart. And I think they're critically looking at women now in terms of, well, maybe I don't want to get married right now, but I would like to get married. And what type of quality? The effect alone that Kevin Samuels and podcasts like the Whatever Podcast or Fresh and Fit have done to expose, albeit perhaps some of the lower dregs of female society, it did open up men's eyes as to the fact that women could be bad. They could have atrocious behavior. They could be not marriageable. And I think these guys are much more street smart, that they're not that, well, I got to be equal and do the dishes and chores too. I think they're looking and say, nope, this is bad. How else would you describe the passport bro movement? I mean,
so I got a question about that. Someone tipped me $5 and said, what do you guys think about passport bros?
Go ahead, TFM. I got my opinion.
Look, okay, just going back to our economic example, when the price of labor becomes too expensive, you either automate or you outsource. So you can get a sex robot or a waifu, or you could go overseas and get some, dark spin jungle princess to be your wife. It's the same thing, like, again, it's an economics problem. So just like businesses will outsource to India or China, or they'll put in robots, guys are basically faced with the same alternatives. If your domestic labor market is overpriced and it's not pulling its weight, you can either outsource to a foreign country or you can automate with robotics. The passport bros are the outsourcers, whereas the guys who have robots and dolls are like the automators. But it's the same solution to the same kind of economic dilemma. Is the price of pussy too high?
I'd go along with the substitute good argument where men are swapping out prawn or just video games or drugs even. But the passport bros, that's a classic example of international trade where the analogy I've been using is you're mining for magnesium and then there's no more magnesium in the mine. Well, you have to go elsewhere, but except instead of like magnesium, it's like an entire country. And so you have to go overseas. If you want a traditional marriage-minded woman, I've been giving this advice to all my clients. I'm like, look, the percentage of American women that are marriageable in the marrying age cohorts, you're looking at about 3%. They're there, but they're exceptionally few and rare. instead of asking and debating the reasons why and how, you don't have the time, especially if you want to start a family. So I am all for passport bros because that's the most logical, obvious solution. There's no more magnesium in the mine. You got to go to whatever, Japan, Thailand, Uruguay, whatever, where there actually is magnesium. And so I'm all for men doing that, because a lot of these, you don't have time to be going through your second divorce at 55. Oh, now I want myself a little Filipina. Like, no, do it now, especially if you want kids. So I'm very much for the passport bro movement, because it's the most practical solution to the problem they're facing here domestically.
I mean, as an outside observer, I have to say that I have noticed that you use the amount 3%. I don't know what the actual number is. I would probably assume it's a little bit higher, but whatever. And the point being is that I find more and more that people that do, either come into the show and talk to me about it, or write in, or friends that I have, even like things like that, I find them more and more trying to convince women that like they're actually marriageable and that's what they want, and that's what when their actions say the complete opposite. So it's like you're setting yourself up for a real fall, because if you convince her that that's what she wants in the first place and it's just not true, then it's going to be you that suffers. Like, you're the one who's going to fall really hard when she says, well, I didn't want this in the first place, when she brings Chad and Tyrone back to the house one day when she thinks you're not around.
But here we're falling in. I don't want to call it a trap necessarily, but look what we're doing again. Oh, we got to convince a woman to marry us. We got to.
No, I'm not saying. I'm not saying that's a solution. I'm saying that's what they claim they're doing.
Well, that's right. They're doing that. Where in reality, it should be women convincing men that, oh no, we're marriage material, because they're the ones who, at least on paper, want the commitment. And you kind of got to step back and look at it as a National Geographic special.
Back to the
what are the
animal,
wildebeest? Look, if women at least some animals go into heat and show their butt to raise their tail or whatever. I don't know. I'm not Jane Goodall, but at least there's some indication. And I'll be fair, but honest. I don't believe women are livestock or anything like that. But if women wanted to get married these past couple of generations, their behavior has been atrocious. You're looking at 70% of women and men, but young, are overweight. I'm sick and tired of this single mom horse shit. You come in as a financial liability, typically with student loan debt for a completely unemployable degree. You got attitude, you got lip, you're incapable of love, you are incapable of selflessness, you are solipsistic, you only think you're the only person that exists. Other people are there purely to serve you. A man and a child are a checkbox. You outsource your kids to daycare. It's fine behavior if you want to be a single woman. It's atrocious behavior if you want to be a wife and a mother. And we could go in, well, how do we convince a girl? Stop trying to convince them. They don't want to get married.
Here's the thing. Men keep adapting to, as women become more and more awful, because men are so horny, they just they tolerate it. They even fetishize it. So, like, I use this analogy. 100 years ago, if you were a divorcee, or if you weren't a virgin, your life was over. Like,
or at
if
least
you
severely diminished.
Yeah, your options would severely diminish if you were not a virgin. And then after that, it was okay if you're a divorcee. You don't have to be a virgin, but you can't be a divorcee. And then it was okay. Well, you can't be a single mom. Now you have women who are sex workers, who are expecting men to accept that during college she was literally selling her pussy and making sex tapes for money, and she still expects you to put a ring on it. And because these guys are so horny and so thirsty, they'll put up with it. And you talk about how women are becoming fat. Men will fetishize BBW porn and be like, oh, I love giant fat women. And then, oh, women cheat. Oh, I'm going to fetishize that. I'm into cuckoldry. I like it when my girlfriend fucks other guys in front of me. And they fetishize women's awful behavior because in their mind it's this or nothing. So as awful as women become, men just adapt and they adapt and overcome and learn to enjoy it, whatever they got to do mentally to have that click. And then it gives women permission to become even worse. And one of my catchphrases is, women are as good or as bad as men allow them to be. If men demanded better, women would have to be better. But the problem is, if man A demands better, man B through Z is more than willing to. I've even seen like a clip where this guy was having an argument with his girlfriend, and he kicked her out of his car and told her to walk home. And she gets out of his car, and then immediately a guy pulls over like, "Hey, baby, you need a ride?" And she gets in the other guy's car, and they drive off. Mm-hmm. Like, there's always a thirsty guy behind you, ready to swoop in and play Captain Save-A-Ho to make sure she never suffers any consequences for her bad behavior. And unfortunately, it's gotten worse with online dating. It's gotten worse with the competition for women because of online dating, and just it's just whatever. Unfortunately, the system is breaking, and it's a game you can't play. You can't win it. You can play it, but it's like extremely competitive, and it's really not even rewarding.
It's a waste of time, and that's why I think a lot of men are walking away from that.
Right. No, you can win. It's just not worth it. So it's like you put all this time and effort and deal with all this bullshit, and you get like a couple minutes of sticky friction in an overweight single mom. That's your prize after all this fucking. It's like a carnival game where you spend like $50 to win like something from Dollar Tree. You get a Dollar Tree prize after spending $50 to throw a ping pong ball with a silo cup.
And I think men are waking up to that, because we've talked about all these different metrics and statistics. Labor force participation rate going down, men hours worked per week. I got a ton of data and charts in the recent book. The number of women men ask out, the dating apps are going bankrupt because men are there. It took a while, but enough, or a key critical percentage of men are starting to walk away and say, no, I'm not marrying this trash. I'm certainly not chasing after it. Yes, the simps you will always have with you, saith the Lord. But I think if you look at macroeconomic data in terms of overall participation or investment, men are starting to retreat from it, and they're starting to go overseas in increasing numbers. So I think there is hope. Women aren't going unchecked totally, but yes, you're right, TFM. Between digital online attention, and there's always going to be there will always be somebody there to feign romantic committive interest just to get sexual access. But we're slowly starting to. It took 75 years for the Soviet Empire to collapse and figure out this communism thing doesn't work. We're now 55 years into feminism, if you want to use, 1965. I mean, I think, I'm not saying we're healing. I don't have that much faith. Don't sell your crypto just yet, but I think men at least are starting to be more empirical. I mean, look at the prog beforehand. If we went to our parents' generation, well, you're supposed to get married. When are you going to put a ring on it? Do the right thing and marry that girl. Now it is actually acceptable to say, fuck marriage. That's bullshit.
Right. Okay. So
real quick. I've been talking. I actually call it the relationship LARP.
You there, TFM?
Are you familiar with? Oh,
yeah, we're all here.
Okay. No, sorry. I guess I was going in and out. I wanted to bring up South Korea, because South Korea has the lowest birth rates in the world, and their feminism is off the rails. Like the misandry, the man hate, it's openly hating men in South Korea, and the men, they're sick of it. Like they basically, there's mutual hatred between the sexes in South Korea, and basically that society is going to go extinct. So basically, yes, men are waking up, but what are they waking up to? They have no power to change the system without overthrowing the government, abolishing welfare, and taking women's rights away, which they don't have the ability to do with terrible violence. So essentially, men wake up and they realize, well, this shit is fucked. I guess I'm going to go play video games and whatever until society collapses. And that's basically what we're headed for. And it's sad, but I mean, whatever. There's no other way. Like, once you give women rights, they're not going to let you vote them away. They're always going to outvote you, because women live longer than men. They're always going to outnumber you. So once you cross that Rubicon, your society basically has cancer, and it's just going to get worse and worse and worse until it collapses. And I know you're like, oh, that's going to happen like centuries from now. Not really. I mean,
decades. Yeah.
decades at most, and it will go away. And now, I mean, we'll be too old to. I mean, maybe. I mean, older men can still have children into old age if you're into that sort of thing. But I've basically resigned that, like, it's fine. But look, this will be a very bad experiment, and maybe history will remember that time we gave women rights and it destroyed Western civilization. Let's never do that again. But unfortunately, there's nothing we can do. We have this is like, there's that quote from Lord of the Rings where Frodo was like, I wish this hadn't happened in my time. And Gandalf was like, so do I, so do all who live to see such times, but it's not for us to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that's been given us. So while we're waiting for society to circle the drain and collapse due to unsustainable debt, welfare, demographic replacement, crime, immigration, all this stuff, it's destroying everything. There's nothing we can do about it. So we just have to find something to do to either prepare or to entertain ourselves or to find some meaning and purpose in life. And then eventually when the shooting starts, we can finally fix everything. But we have to wait for the shooting to start first. So,
Halsey,
just figure out something to do.
What were you going to say?
I was going to say that I call it the relationship LARP because I get a lot of questions on this stuff on my show when I'm just by myself. And I always say that, like, investment yields returns. Yes, it can yield losses as well, but it used to be that if you wanted to take someone out, like, you had to go through the hassle of asking them out, plan a date, go on the date, enjoy the date, whatever. There was an investment to it that if a girl showed up to a date, she at least was willing to make the investment to go through the night and see if something was there. And so there was, like, an investment, and maybe there was a return. Maybe even if she was, like, on the fence about whether the guy was a good guy or whether he was someone she could be with, whatever, she at least took the investment of the night to figure it out. With online dating, it's just like online HR, right? Online HR, they just get 1,000 resumes a week and just throw out anyone that doesn't well overqualify for the job, right? Because they don't have to. They have so many choices that why would they waste their time meeting with 1,000 people? So now it's the same thing with online dating. There's just no investment to it. It's so, like, at the very most, your investment is like a 5-minute chat in an online DM, and if the person says one thing that you don't like, block, and it's over. Like there is no investment to it whatsoever. But if they do take that wild step of talking to someone for a while, right? Like, and they form like a pseudo relationship online where it's kind of like they're hitting the gas with no brakes because everything is just talk and everything is just it winds up in your head and blah 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 blah. It turns into basically a LARP. Like, you're having this pretend relationship that never is going to go anywhere until you actually meet up in the first place. Because you can fall in love with someone online and then go out on the first date and realize you can't stand that person. Like even if it's something like really stupid, like they bite their nails and that's just something that fucking drives you insane, or they slurp soup, or, like, you know what I'm saying?
What you're talking about. So it's not called relationship LARP. It's called a parasocial relationship. So it's not an actual relationship. It's a parasocial relationship. Basically, it only exists in cyberspace. It's literally what, like, if you have an AI girlfriend, that's what you have.
Right.
You basically have a girlfriend that doesn't exist, but you can talk to her, on the internet, but you can't ever meet her because she has no physical body. And even if you put her in a robot, that's just, it's like a simulacrum, but it's not a real person.
No, but what I'm saying, though, is that when people keep asking me for advice on this, so what I keep saying is the same thing. I say, I don't care if you're talking to someone online for a year, right? And I love yous have been swapped back and forth. You're LARPing all the way to the fucking altar. You're literally on a first date. That's what that entire time period was. Because you've never been able to advance your relationship any further than you would on a first date. You don't know that person any further than you would on a first date because all you know is data. You don't know anything about their actual physical personality. You don't know anything about the attraction. You don't know anything about anything that a first date would actually have. So that whole time that you've invested is just a really good first date. Now, don't get me wrong. That can lead to a very good second date and third date when you actually meet, when you decide that the soup slurping or the fucking biting your nails isn't worth it or whatever it may be. But if you're able to compartmentalize like that, and like, you call it whatever you want, I personally just call it the relationship LARP because it's easy. But I'm saying, like, you can enjoy it and you can move forward with it, but you have to keep it in the context of what it is. That it's a very exciting first date, and like if
Right. Well, it's like a job interview. When you go to a job interview, you're not acting like you actually would on the job.
sure.
You are dressing up, you're giving the answers the person wants to hear rather than your genuine feelings because you're trying to get the job.
See,
Once
I'm
you're
not
hired,
capable of doing that. So I mean,
oh,
I'm
well,
just.
that's the way the world works, my friend.
I know.
But anyway, but
Trust me, I know.
once you're hired, once you sign paperwork, and once you're actually on the clock, that's when you actually show who you really are. And so yeah, you can't judge people by their job interview whether or not they're going to be a good employee. They can wow you in the job interview, get to work, and be just like sandbagging and being a complete liability to your company, and they get fired within 2 weeks. So that does happen. So that's basically what, like, online relationships or online dating, anything online where you're not actually with somebody, living life with them, even if it's only for a couple hours, a couple times a week when you're on a date, you have to be with them to experience what life would be like with them. You can't just talk to each other through a chat window or even on the phone and get any kind of sense for who they are as a person. It's to your point. And
Well, you can. You
unfortunately,
just can't advance past it. That's my point.
right,
Like,
you're right. My point is, you're at the job interview stage. They might really impress you with the job interview, but until they actually show up for work, you don't know if they're going to be a good employee or not, because you have to actually see them working. They're just trying to. They could be wowing you at the job interview, and they could be just faking the whole thing. You don't know until they're actually there on the clock, which is why relationships generally happen that way. There's usually like you go on some dates, you go into a relationship to see how you really actually interact with each other. Like back in the day, you didn't necessarily move in together, but you date for a while, even though you really liked each other. You would just get married the next day. You
well,
would date
some
for a
people do, but
while.
I hear you.
Well, sure, it depends on the society, but generally you want to get a feel for who they are as a person before you make any like permanent decisions. And unfortunately, online dating has upended that whole system. Everything is done online. Everything is surface level. Women are just trying to manage the sheer amount of resumes they get on a daily basis.
Oh, sure.
Men. It's like hyper competitive from the man's perspective. Even good looking guys barely get any attention on online dating unless they're like incredibly attractive or signaling they have lots of money.
Right. Like they're not only really good looking, but standing next to like a Bugatti
Yeah,
or
you
something.
have to you have to be standing in front of a boat. You have to have a six pack. Like what some kind of whatever. That's just what it takes to be in that top 5%. And again, like to Aaron Clarey's point, it's most guys just realize, one, maybe you don't have the capacity to break into that top 5%. You just weren't endowed genetically. You could bust your ass and go to the gym and whatever, but you're just never going to be that attractive without like plastic surgery or something.
What's the
And
guy's
so
name? You're not Muggsy Bogues, is it?
yeah, the short basketball player.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you could be great. You could be a great basketball player, but you're never going to be like the all-time great of all time because you're 5'4" or something. Anyway, the point is a lot of guys get filtered out just because they didn't win the genetic lottery, and some guys just realize the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Like the what do they get at the end of this road of after all this work? Like I've talked to guys, and I think it wasn't you, Aaron. It was Entrepreneurs in Cars. He was interviewed, or it might have been you.
Rich
I
Cooper.
remember somebody was interviewing this guy who was like one of those top 5%, highly desirable, like 10 out of 10 guys, and he puts in an incredible amount of work. Like goes to the gym every day, workouts, goes to work, dresses well, and yeah, he goes on social media, gets a lot of girls to match with him, basically books them for sex, and just has sex with lots of women. But that's his whole life. If you want that life, that's got to be like your whole thing. Is you got to basically lock in, and this is what you're going to live your life for as long as you can. And maybe you find that fulfilling. Maybe the prospect of just having random sex with random women on Tinder is worth sacrificing everything. But I don't know. And you could be like, oh, you're just coping or whatever. But like, it's not worth it. Like, most guys who are virgins can't even appreciate this, but the only thing you gain when you lose your virginity is the realization about how little sex actually matters. Like your big epiphany is that was it. Like, yes, that was it. It was a few minutes of sticky friction, and that was it. That's what you did all this work for, was a couple minutes of sticky friction, and it didn't even spin. It didn't even spin.
I got into this with someone else the other day, and oh my god, it was that was the most awkward conversation I think I've ever had. Because
What
I'm
about
like,
the spinning?
no, it wasn't just
Oh.
about spinning robot pussy. It was about the like this person in one of my chats just wouldn't stop about like all of these different devices that exist in the female world, and they're talking to me like I'm an idiot, and I'm like, funny enough, I have quite a bit of knowledge on this subject. And they're like, why? And I was like, because I hear about it every Wednesday for the last fucking 5 years. So it's like, and it was like, really? And I was like, yes, I actually have quite a bit of knowledge on this. And like, it was so funny to have this conversation with this guy. And he's like, what do you mean there's something called the spinning robot? I was like, we gave one for Christmas one year, or 5 or 10 or something. Like, I'm telling you, these things exist. And like, we're going in, and they're like, are you comfortable knowing all this? I was like, no, but I do. Like,
Now that you mention our Lord and Savior spinning robot pussy, there's something that just dawned on me, especially if you're talking about these online relationships where you never migrate away from them. I'm wondering, I don't wonder, I'm wondering to what extent having online relationship or surrogate, parasocial, not real in-person relationships are also keeping a lot of women out of meeting guys. So like a girl will go and get all the attention online all day. And I also believe that there are a lot of women who would love to have a romantic relationship online, but absolutely do not want to meet that person in person. And then you throw in sex toys too, or men using prawn as a substitute. I'm wondering, especially in the digital age, if a third alternative to not dating in person versus dating in person now exists that a lot of the younger generations are okay with.
so I have a theory. I have a theory on this.
Yeah.
Now I have nothing. I have a theory, and
can
I have
confirm
nothing
this.
to back it up. Wait, let me go.
Go ahead.
I have nothing
Go
to
ahead,
back
Kirk.
this up, but I suggested this to someone, and I'm kind of watching closely to see how it pans out. Okay, you can acknowledge right from the beginning that it's a LARP, and that most likely it's not going to go anywhere, but it's just something you're going to have fun with for a while and see where it goes, and maybe it does go somewhere because the boundary is there that like, okay, we're not going to play this game of like, I love you, you love me, like we're going to get married and have 5 kids, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, because obviously like the reality isn't there that you haven't met each other. So if that's the case, you can only take things so far, and words are only so good. Okay, but if you acknowledge the LARP, you could have fun with it, and having fun with it could lead to more. So the person I suggested this to is meeting this girl that he's dating in like 2 weeks, that they haven't met yet, and I'm like dying to hear how it went because they've been doing exactly what my theory was. Now, it won't prove anything; it's anecdotal, but I'm saying like I have a feeling that there's some happy medium on this thing where it's like, if you just have what did you call it? I just call it the relationship LARP, whatever.
A parasocial relationship.
If you have that and you try to replace real life dating with that, you are guaranteed to fail because there's no brakes on it. There's no like, I'm not going to say that because someone's going to look at me and my cheeks are going to turn red, or, you know, like there's no brakes. There's no social norms. There's no white noise. There's no like the 5 minutes when someone excuses themselves to go to the bathroom and you have to sit there for a few minutes and like think about what you've just been doing for the last hour and how much you like the person, whatever it is. Like, it's just open the floodgates and let it go. That's online interaction. So, so if you can acknowledge that that's a LARP and you're doing it for fun, then it's possible it could go somewhere else. But
Well, let me.
Okay, well, I was
kinda
gonna say, well, go ahead.
Well, some just dawned on me. Let's go back to the pre-internet days. What percentage of women were strippers? It's very small.
extremely
And
now-
also there was a social cost. If you were a stripper or a porn star,
And there was a social cost.
you could kiss like, you know, any kind of desirable men who would even think about putting a ring on your finger goodbye. That's why a lot of former porn stars, they find Jesus and try
Find
to
a pastor
pass
to hook
themselves
up
off
with,
as born
you know.
again. Yeah, try to
So
find a good Christian boy to forgive, because they've been reborn. You can't judge them for what they did on Pornhub all those years.
right. So nowadays, though, how common is it for a girl to be on OnlyFans or Instagram or
It
whatever
is
number of? Very common. It's
it
very
is
common.
extremely common. In fact, this is what I
So
was going to mention before. To facilitate these parasocial relationships, they now have sex toys you could link together.
I've
So
seen
she could
that.
be
I've
using
seen
a
that
toy.
just
Yeah,
people talking about it.
I've reviewed them. So they have sex toys now that you can basically link, and you can even go to a group room where you can control each other's sex toys. And like someone else can control what your toy does, you can control what their toy does. You can link them together. So while you're masturbating with your toy, it's like thrusting into her and vice versa. And so it's like simulated sex. It's not just two people masturbating while moaning into a phone like the good, back in the day. That's how back in my day we used to have phone sex where we just masturbate and moan into each other's ears. But now they got these fandangled toys you can masturbate with, and it like controls her toy and vice versa. And these girls, they make video, they make content for OnlyFans doing that. They sell access to their toys to their subscribers, or they do live streams. And when you donate, the donation triggers the toy. So guys will be throwing money like a stripper to make her toy vibrate and make her orgasm. And that's how these girls make their money.
well, but I'm using this as a proportionality. Okay, very few women back in the day would be strippers. Now, it's not. It's nowhere near as uncommon. And so I'm
Well,
wondering,
and
it allows women to have a fake. The online presence allows women to have a relationship or business different than what it was before. So now I'm wondering how many women are just as an online stripper is going to feel more safe because comforts of own home, you're not at a physical place. How many women are going to be okay with an exclusively online digital relationship because
but
it's
I would
also
say
safer in your home?
I would say men should have that, like just like women have standards, men should have standards. If a man's looking for a girlfriend and she has an OnlyFans, they should just walk away like immediately.
The problem is the intense competition, because again, only the top 20% are even visible to women. So if you want a woman, you can't. If you have standards, you're basically. And I've seen women who are like threes, basically like have a diva complex, and not even exaggerating. These threes with like multiple chins, having a diva complex because all these simps give them attention. And so if you try to have standards or try to like put them in their place or make any kinds of like whatever, they literally just, well, I don't have time for you. I have all these guys over here, and they're not lying. There's an army of simps who will give them all the attention they want and ask for nothing in return. And the competition is so intense because you're trying to compete for in that 20%. It's just, it is what it is. It is what it is. But now, like I was saying earlier, it used to be you had to be a virgin or you couldn't be a divorcee. Now the newest thing is women, they're normalizing being a sex worker, having an OnlyFans, being an escort, like, going out and fucking for money. That's being normalized, and you're expected to just accept it. That like just because your girlfriend used to be a sex worker or used to get like bukkakeed at parties on video and it's on Pornhub, you can't judge her for that. That's the newest thing guys are expected to put up with. And unfortunately, if you refuse to put up with it, that's fine. It's just you've now limited your potential, mates to a very small pool in a very overcrowded, hyper-competitive market. And so the likelihood of you finding somebody is slim to none. And so more and more guys are just finding that either they're not equipped to compete, that they can't break into the top 20% because they didn't win the genetic lottery, or the juice isn't worth the squeeze. They could compete if they either wanted to dedicate a large portion of their life to this competition, but what do they get at the end of the race? They get a fat single mom. That's not worth it. That's not worth the sacrifice. So then the question becomes, what do? Do you become a passport bro? Do you go to Asia to try to find your jungle princess? Do you get a robot who has with a spinning robot pussy? That's a choice you have to make. But unfortunately, because society has not yet collapsed, we can't do anything to alter this system. We just have to let it play out slowly like a train wreck.
Only reason I brought up the online thing is that there's a further hurdle now that I think men have to get through in order to like meet. I think most guys would like to meet in person, whereas a significant
Right.
percentage of women I think would just be okay getting the digital attention online. But that's also going to contribute. Like, how much does it cost to maintain a digital girlfriend that you text every once in a while, never meet up in person?
Well,
You're not going
well,
to buy a house, and
that's
all the commensurate spending that comes with buying a house. There's no furniture sales in online dating. It just doesn't.
We'll go a step
for
further too.
purchases.
You're not going to meet someone that lives within 5 miles from you online, most likely. Like
right. She's gonna be in a
live
different country or
in
something.
Washington State or something, like, and be perfect, but you're thousands of miles away.
Or
So
she's gonna be AI. So you can chat with her as much as you want. You can have all kinds of steamy romantic conversations, but she doesn't exist. So you're not going to meet her in real life.
you see, again, like when you go off on those kind of tangents, it's not that I care that you do it. I just can't fathom it. Like the idea of having a conversation with a person that isn't real, that completely fucking freaks my brain out. Like I can't even wrap my head around it. So it's
I
like
mean,
it's hard for me to like sit here and go, oh yeah, you could do that, because I can't imagine ever doing that. I would feel like I was
well, it's
talking to a fucking Teddy Ruxpin, to date myself, by the way, like how old I am.
yeah. I mean,
But
you could just cut a hole in its crotch and stick a vagina in it and go to town on old Teddy.
uh, that is now the most disturbing thing I have heard
So
in
glad I
fucking
came
years.
on.
Right,
So glad
Aaron?
There
I'm
you
here.
go. I,
He's
you
like
know,
reconsidering that fucking
I
sponsorship at this
remember
point.
I had a Teddy Ruxpin, and there was even a guy called Aaron in the Teddy Ruxpin little trio. There was the caterpillar, there was Teddy Ruxpin, and there was Aaron, who was like a little elf guy.
Oh my god.
So there you go.
Well,
I
now
call
all
being the
three of them are
caterpillar.
completely ruined for all life.
I
Like
know.
my innocent childhood has been shattered.
But here's the thing. You know how you might like a character from a show.
Sure.
You might admire a certain character. It's kind of like that, except you can. It's like a story you cooperatively write. It's instead of you reading a story that was written for you to just it's like watching a movie versus. Or I'll give you an example. Like one of the best mediums for horror is a video game. Because when you're watching a horror movie and you're just watching people run through the woods while the killer's chasing them, okay, but when you're playing a video game and your character, your avatar is running through the woods trying to not be killed by the killer, that definitely hits you in a different place than watching it on a screen where you're just passively observing. So, the horror like video games are an excellent medium for horror, probably the best medium for horror because you're personally invested in the character because you're controlling it. And the thing is like when it comes to romance type of stuff, it's similar. So like having an AI waifu or girlfriend, it's like cooperatively writing a romance novel with them where you're just getting really into the character. You're not like but also because a lot of relationships are online, you're chatting with this girl on OnlyFans or Tinder or whatever, or you're chatting with her on your phone. If you're chatting with an AI, it's basically the same thing. The only difference is it's not a real
there's no
person.
future to
It's
it.
an AI. No, there's no future in most online relationships.
But I'm
You're
saying that
basically
it's like playing the lottery. Like there's still a chance you'll win. I mean, most likely you won't, but there's a chance. With an AI, there's no chance.
well, sure, like, but you could do both. You could have like your AI girlfriend while also, rolling the dice on Tinder, but you're probably not going to find anything there. But it's
You see,
I
but
look
the
at
thing with me, TFM, I can't even handle the analogy because you know why? I haven't played video games since I was a kid, and I sucked at them then. And you've seen me when I tried. What did we try? Like 2 streams where we played a video game. I couldn't even find where you were. Like when we were playing. Remember?
what we were playing. I don't remember what we were
It
playing.
was like a shooter elf game, but
Oh, I think it was Paladins.
yeah, that's what it was. But I'm saying like
Okay.
the closest thing I played to a video game is like on my kid's Switch. I played like fishing, where I sat there with the thing and I pretended I was fishing on the couch. I felt like an asshole after like 5 minutes and stopped. And I haven't really played since. Like
Right.
it's so I can't even make like the connection that you're making with an AI to a video game because I don't even play video games. So it's like I can't live in that world. Like I can't get my head there.
Well, imagine you had a magical book. I'll try to use a magical book analogy. You have a magical book where you basically, or you remember those choose your own adventure books from like
Sure.
the 80s? So
I'm
it's
not
like a
from the
choose
80s.
your own.
I couldn't read then. But
or
Go ahead.
whatever. So you have there's these choose your own adventure books or fighting fantasy if you're British,
Hmm.
and they're basically books you read, but then you make choices, and you basically embody the character in the story because you're making choices in the book. You're not just reading a story; you're deciding what happens in the story. There's a level of interactivity, and so when you're chatting with an AI, it's like a choose your own adventure romance novel where you're writing this love story with this character, and look, it scratches the itch. It's better than nothing. And in a world where your options are a parasocial relationship with an OnlyFans model, or rolling the dice on Tinder and trying to slide into someone's DMs, it scratches the itch. It's not nothing's there are no perfect solutions. Like going overseas, being a passport bro and trying to get some Filipino girl, that's a risk. A lot of them are just using you for a passport, and as soon as you marry them, they're going to divorce you and take your money. So it's like it's all shit. This
I mean,
whole
look,
system is
I don't
shit.
have much evidence on it, but I know quite a few people that went overseas to get married and came back married and are still very happy.
Well, there's always, again, there's lots of guys who are still married and they didn't get divorced and whatever, and they could tell you they're happy. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. Maybe they're in a sexless, loveless marriage and they're trapped. You don't really know.
And that's true, but I would choose to say that I don't want to just assume that they're lying to me, as the default. Like if someone tells me
No,
they're happy, I'm gonna probably believe them unless I have some kind of evidence to the contrary.
the problem here's the problem. Like, you don't know. It's like you get married and you just hope you didn't make the wrong choice. You hope that she doesn't wake up tomorrow and decide she's not happy and ruin your life because you have no protections. Back in the day, if you didn't do anything wrong, there was a thing called fault divorce. If you didn't do anything wrong, she couldn't divorce you. You had to do something. You had to break your vows in some way for her to have grounds to divorce you. But that's gone. And then it used to be if she cheated on you, she would basically lose access to financial support, child support, whatever. That's all gone. You have no protection. She could cheat on you and she could take everything from you. She could be a criminal. Like, there's no line she has to cross. Like, she's just going to ruin your life and there's nothing you can do to protect yourself. And you could be like, but I found a girl who has good values and was raised right and was the right religion. And I've seen it every way you can imagine. Guys have been so careful, and look, some guys, again, they just married their high school sweetheart without thinking about it, and they're still married to this day, and they're happy. And that, people win the lottery, good for them. But playing the lottery is really stupid. It's basically a stupid tax. But people do win once in a while, even though they're basically paying the stupid tax. But a lot more people don't win, and they ruin their lives. And unfortunately, because there's no protections, there's not, if there was like some type of insurance you could take out, that would be one thing,
Could
but
you
there
imagine?
isn't. Well, yeah, the laws are specifically made it to prevent men from protecting themselves in any way. And it is what it is. So the system is just fundamentally broken. Women broke it, feminism broke it, gynocentrism broke it, and there's no way to fix it because the only way to fix it is to overthrow the government and to just remove all these laws and welfare, and that's not going to happen. So we just have to wait and twiddle our thumbs and wait for the system to collapse. And it is going to collapse. Like, look at South Korea, lowest birth rates in the world. Men and women hate each other in South Korea. That society has no future, and yet nobody's doing anything. So you just have to wait for the system to collapse under its own weight. Once it does, patriarchy will be swept back in because that's the natural order. In the absence of all this government nonsense, patriarchy will be the default. So in the grand scheme of things, everything will be fine. But I mean, to people like us, people who are listening, what do you do in your life? Like, you're not going to live to see that happen. You're not going to be able to reap the benefits of that collapse where you can like swoop in and be like the wasteland warlord who takes his war bride back to his fucking tent of skulls and whatever. That's not going to happen. So you need to figure out something to do with your life in the meantime while we're all waiting for society to collapse and feminism to go away. And that's unfortunately where we kind of find ourselves. So figure out what you want to do with your life, whether you want to go overseas, get a robot, whatever. Find something that makes you happy, whether it's leisure, whether it's helping others,
I
whether
got a
it's
whole
doing
book on
something.
it. It's called The Menu: Life Without the Opposite Sex. 'Cause-
Really?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it goes through
Yeah.
all the different things life has to offer. I also co-promote it because it pairs well with TFM's Way of Monkey book, where
Yeah,
it says,
it
yeah, if
does.
you're half of you
It's
not
like
going to
a
get
fine
married, what
wine
do you
with
got
a
to do?
fine dessert port.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yes, it's like a cheese platter with your wine and your bread and your little delightful charcuterie board.
And
Mhm.
a 10% off
So
coupon for a spinning robot pussy.
you got to have dessert. But that's unfortunately there are no solutions because men can't solve the problem and women won't solve the problem.
Aaron,
So
you
we just
agree
have
on
to
that?
wait.
Yeah, like
We have to
I'm
wait for.
Yeah, I'm more or less. I was running through my thought, like, for example, Elon Musk or anyone with money has a tremendous opportunity to make so much money in so many industries in the United States right now because the current people occupied are shit. Video games, movies, cell phones, cars. He makes electric cars though. It's the same thing here. You'd like to think the laws of competition, a couple savvy girls would say, geez, I could get kind of any guy I want if I just go on the treadmill and I'm not a bitch. You know, if I'm sweet and kind and I don't mind making cookies and I wear the cute thing, you would think, wow, you could come in and capture this market. I don't think there's a genuine incentive. I don't think women are that interested in men unless they have fathers or they're part of a religious community where marriage and family is promoted. I think your general population in the West, it will take a collapse. I do see some women are starting to want to be a little bit more traditional. I think some of the younger generations have watched their boomer and Gen X sisters just fucking butcher their lives and be miserable. But I think a lot of that is also just tee hee. I'm totally Republican, and I so like making the the
Yeah.
trad wife kind of scam. But I think there's some authenticity, but nowhere near in the numbers where women are like, oh, when the obesity or overweight weight for young women, 18 to 35, drops below 20%, let me know. But in the meantime, they're 50 points away from that.
Here's the
So I
problem.
don't
Here's
see
the
it.
problem. So guys, so again, if you're in the top, you have to be the top 20% to even be visible. Guys who are like 7, 8s, 9s, and 10s will fuck a 5. If he's just looking to get his dick wet and she's available and no questions asked, he'll fuck a fat 5 if that's the best he's going to do that night and he just wants to get his dick wet. And these women, like, because attractive men will have sex with them when they're just like they're the best they could do at that time, they interpret that as, oh, I don't have to lose weight, I don't have to better myself because this really attractive guy at this party took me in the bathroom and fucked me. Therefore, that's the guy I could eventually get to marry me. Because if a guy fucks me at a party, that means that's the kind of guy I can get. And they don't understand, like, just because a guy fucks you and uses you for sex doesn't mean he's going to marry you. But that's what these women interpret. So it unfortunately, there's nothing we can do. Women, they see the world fundamentally differently than a man. There's nothing we can do to convince them to stop. Society is reinforcing negative behavior for women. Men can't do anything about it because the society is built for women. You just have to kind of just dust your hands off and be like, well, fuck this, and then go do something else with your life. And look, eventually it'll all come crashing down. And then their uppance will come. And what's funny is, like, other than the really diehard feminists, most women will very quickly learn to grow their hair out, put on a dress, bake an apple pie, and shut the fuck up. It'll happen shockingly quickly. Once all the shit goes away, women will rediscover femininity like overnight. But there's nothing we can do to make that happen. We just have to wait for this very expensive LARP of gender equality to just collapse under its own weight, and then it'll go away. And all we got to do is just, like, okay, once that happens and once sanity is restored, just never do that again. The next person who's like, we should give women rights, we just have to crucify them. immediately. Take
Look,
them,
look,
hold
guys.
them down, nail them, impale them, put a sign around their neck, and just like make a very public example of them. That's the only way. And
Obviously,
it'll still fail.
I enjoy these conversations, and I get some clarity from them. But I mean, I'm one of the true believers, so I still think a lot is possible. So I just like even today when we were talking about just the future, like I tend to be a very optimistic person. So maybe I just live in a fantasy land.
There's
But
it's possible. Guys, look, if guys collectively woke up tomorrow, we could solve all of our problems in a single day. But that's not going to happen. You just realistically, like, yes, on paper, theoretically, like in the same way that if a bunch of monkeys type on typewriters randomly, they'll produce Shakespeare eventually. Just not going to happen. We're talking decades. We're not talking centuries. We're talking decades. Within decades, this whole system will collapse. So now we might be too old. I mean, you're married. You're fine. But some of us might be too old to do anything about it at that point. We're kind of like the middle child generation. We're born too late to have a traditional family, but we're born too early to be warlords in the wasteland. So we just have to kind of accept that we're like the middle children of history, and we're like the guy holding the end is nigh sign.
you know what?
With
First
like
of all,
the
I'm never
rainbow
okay.
wig.
I'm never just fine. Don't worry about it. Second of all, I am always fucking capable of being a warlord. I don't care if I'm 80 years old.
Okay. Well, look, we'll do our best. I mean, I have rheumatoid arthritis, so I'm probably not going to be a warlord unless I get like a cool robot body like General Grievous or Atom Smasher. I'm probably kind of SOL when in the apocalypse. But I'm really shooting for that robot body. Just give me a fucking cyborg body in the apocalypse, and I will fuck shit up.
Well, guys, we're out of time. It's been 2 hours, and I really appreciate the both of you coming on. This has been an enlightening conversation, to be the least. Aaron, let everyone know where they can find your stuff. He's got a whole bunch of books that are really amazing. A World Without Men, and what was the other one? The menu.
There's plenty. It's just easier to go to Amazon and search Aaron Clarey. It's Clarey. Find all the books. They're mainly economic, financial, related to managing and investing in your romantic love, sex life. So there's those. I have courses that are predominantly about minimalist philosophy and getting your financial act together through Teachable. You can just search the Clarey School of Economic Philosophy. And then my main site, if you need to get in contact with me, or if you got questions, is assholeconsulting.com. And that's where most people reach out to me if they got a question.
That's a great name, Asshole Consulting. That's really fun.
It coming up on 11 years, man. It's great.
That's awesome.
Do you ever get confused for a proctologist with that name?
No. Although what's weird is I've had some businesses reach out to me to actually like do legit consulting. And I'm like, oh, that sounds like real work. And so I've taken a couple of those, but I guess like, nah, I'll just yell at the internet instead. But yeah, that was a curveball in my life I wasn't expecting.
Okay, TFM, tell everybody where they can find you.
All right, so I'm on a lot of alt tech sites because I've been banned from everywhere. Also, I tried to create an X account while we were talking, and it won't let me. It says there's a problem on our end. Try again later. And I even downloaded a new browser, thinking it might be maybe a cookie or something, and it's not letting me create a new account.
Maybe it's just that they're actually having a problem.
I don't know. I'll try again later, but it may not let me. Anyway, so my landing page is t.fm, like TEE, like a t-shirt, .fm, and that's my website, and that has links to all my alt tech. It's easier to go there to find my alt tech links than to me to tell you about places like BitChute or MGTOW.TV or Odyssey, because I'm basically on the alt tech sites because I've been banned everywhere. Not unjustifiably. I don't hate women, by the way. I just don't think they should have rights, and I stand by that. I have the receipts. But it is what it is. I have a YouTube channel. It's mostly just sex toy reviews. But now I can't even do those because YouTube updated the terms of service, so I can't even review sex toys anymore. So now my channel's just kind of dead. But it's still there if you want to watch old sex toy reviews or something. And I've also written books. I'm the proud author of The Doll on My Balls and The Doll on My Balls Rides Again, which is it's very appropriate for the holidays. It's like a Christmas story, and it's written in verse. they're Christmas stories about a sex doll that comes to life on Christmas Eve. So,
How
give yourself, yes, it's very wholesome. So just, go to Amazon, get the Doll on My Balls, and the Doll on My Balls Rides Again. They're excellent Christmas stories. Or you could check out my other books. I have 13 Rules to Not Be a Fucking Cuck. I have the Way of Monkey book. I have a Sweet Corn and Ass, which is like a Dr. Seuss parody book. I'm like a Renaissance man.
That's awesome. Oh man, I was laughing. And Aaron, just so you know, you have an open invitation. Whenever, if ever you want to come back, and talk with Joe.
I
and me
appreciate it. No, I've listened to you guys for years. It's just, how it is. The stars got to align. But yeah, no, I'd love to be on again. So
no problem.
Just say when.
Sure. Well, trust me, I will definitely take you up on that. Guys, tomorrow night I will have Sammy back on. We will be talking about demographic replacement, and should be pretty interesting. It's going to go along with a big rant I had last night. Thank you guys very much for coming, and I will see everybody tomorrow. Take care.
Thanks, Halsey.
Bye.
Fellow Americans, tonight I am speaking to you because there is a growing humanitarian and security crisis at our southern border.
In all honesty, a border wall or steel slats won't work. But great bodies of water will separate us from the horrible Mexican rapists. Introducing the 2019 Trump Great Border Moat. Stocked with the most aggressive penis fish, incredible man-eating alligators, and unbelievable genetically modified moose-cocked rape dolphins, as well as flying, migrant-eating sharkfish. So incredible.
I swore to protect our country, and that is what I will always do. So help me God. Thank you and good night.